In Vacillating the Semblances, Zizek reinterprets ancient Greek philosophy using the tools of Hegel and Lacan. His aim is to defend a radical version of dialectical materialism. Rather than treating ancient thinkers as outdated precursors, Zizek finds in them the raw materials for a truly modern philosophy, one that takes nothingness, appearance, and fiction seriously as positive forces. His central argument is that truth does not lie hidden behind the veil of illusion. Instead, truth emerges precisely through the unstable play of appearances and the gaps they open up. Zizek begins by attacking a very common assumption that appearances are superficial and deceptive, and reality is something solid hidden underneath. Most people think that if we could just strip away the illusions, we would finally see things as they truly are. Zizek completely reverses this. Appearances are not obstacles to truth, but its very condition. Truth does not reside in some quiet, stable background. It is born out of the disruption, movement, and failure of appearances. The gap between what we see and what is really there is not a problem to be solved. It is the very space where human subjectivity comes alive. Without this gap, without this mismatch, there would be no thought, no desire, and no freedom. Zizek re-examines Plato's theory of ideas. Traditional reading says that Plato believed in a perfect world of forms separate from our flawed physical world. Zizek rejects this as a misunderstanding. He offers a materialist reading instead. For him, Platonic ideas are not supernatural entities with their own causal power. They are purely virtual patterns like mathematical attractors. Physical things in the world constantly strive toward these patterns but can never fully reach them. The idea is not a distant blueprint, it shines through the material world precisely because material processes keep failing to match it perfectly. In other words, empirical reality participates in the idea not by copying it, but by letting it appear through its own imperfections. Zizek then connects this to Lacanian psychoanalysis, making a distinction between imaginary lures and symbolic fictions. An imaginary lure is a simple deceptive image like a mirage, but a symbolic fiction is something much more powerful. It is the very structure of human language and society. For example, a title like judge or father carries authority not because of the person holding it, but because of the symbolic position itself. This position is a fiction, but it shapes reality more effectively than any physical fact. A semblance, in this sense, is a mask that covers nothing. Its power lies not in hiding a secret, but in creating the illusion that a secret exists behind it. To explain this, Zizek retells the famous contest between the Greek painters Zeuxis and Parrhasius. Zeuxis painted grapes so realistic that birds tried to eat them, but Parrhasius won by painting a curtain on a wall. Zeuxis was fooled and asked for the curtain to be drawn back to see the painting behind it. The lesson is that the highest form of illusion is not a fake object, but the suggestion that there is a hidden truth behind a veil. The veil itself is the real artwork. Zizek analyzes Plato's dialogue Parmenides, which most scholars treat either as a joke, a dry logical exercise, or a mystical text about an unsayable God. Hegel and Lacan saw it as something far more important. The dialogue is a formal matrix showing how appearances shift, contradict each other, and break down. It demonstrates that truth is not found by stepping outside of perspective to get a neutral view. Truth emerges by examining how our perspectives distort reality. The distortions themselves are what reveal the structure of being. Zizek then turns to ancient atomism, especially Democritus. Democritus coined the word den, which means nothing, but as a positive entity, unlike meden, which is just ordinary negation. For materialists, this positive nothingness or void is the ultimate reality. The universe does not start with a solid thing that later breaks apart. Instead, the void itself undergoes a disturbance, and that disturbance gives rise to physical matter. This is a radical idea. Being emerges from non being, not the other way around. Zizek also reflects on the shocking conclusion of the Parmenides: nothing exists. Without a single stable foundation, reality is just a fluid play of changing appearances. If we inspect these appearances too closely, they dissolve into nothing. But Zizek carefully separates nothing from the void. Nothing is local, it appears when something we expect is missing from a frame. The void, however, is absolute and limitless non being. Finally, he discusses the sophist Gorgias, who claimed that nothing exists, and even if it did, we could not communicate it. Zizek turns this around. Humans constantly speak about things they do not fully understand. We entirely rely on symbolic fictions to think and talk. This does not mean truth is fake. On the contrary, truth itself has the structure of a fiction. Zizek uses these ancient debates to build his dialectical materialism. Truth is not hidden object waiting to be recovered, but the restless movement through illusions, fictions, and semblances. That movement is the only reality we have.